So the topic given to me today is 5G technology implementation and opportunities. So as Sir had introduced me, I'm Ashok Kumar, Director Wireless Access at NTI PRIT. It's a apex level training institute of Government of India, wherein officers of Department of Telecom and other government organizations gets trained in service and also the induction training. So the content which I'll be covering today will be evolution of 1G to 5G mobile communication. Then I'll talk about 5G key usage scenario. What are the different usage of 5G and what are the key capabilities which enables these key usage scenarios. And I'll also talk in very brief about the key technology which 5G uses, and then we'll talk about the 5G deployment in India as well as the worldwide where we are in terms of deployment. So let us start with evolution from 1G to 5G. So if you look at this particular image, this is taken from Qualcomm website, which gives a very uh, uh, interesting snapshot of evolution of mobile technology from 1G to 2G to 3G, 4G, and now 5G. So what we see here is that every 10 years. So what you see here that mobile technologies are evolving continuously, and every 10 years, like 1G was rolled out during 80s and 90s was the time for 2G, although in our country it came late around year 2000, but 90s was a period when 2G was launched, and then came 3G after 10 years again, year 2000, then 4G in 2010, and now we have the 5G technology. And every next generation of the technology, whether you go from 1G to 2G or 2G to 3G, there is a quantum jump in the features. For example, many of the features will be enhanced 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, and so on. For example, if you move from 4G to 5G, your peak data rate is reaching up to 20 Gbps. Your energy efficiency compared to 4G is 100 times better. Spectral efficiency is 3 times better, and so on. So there is a jump of various features from one technology to other technology. Minimum 10x, you can just, in a layman, you can say that at least 10x times increase happens. In some parameter it is more, some parameter it may be less. So let us talk about 1G network. The phone which you see on your screen is a Motorola phone during the 1G period, which was during 1980s, which was launched in US and some other countries. So at that point of time, they used analog technology to offer 1G mobile services, and wherein you will divide the frequencies into small chunk of 30 kilohertz. We call it frequency division multiple access. The students from engineering colleges would appreciate this. And then every user is given a 30 kilohertz channel while he is talking. And of course, there will be guard band between the two, and there will be concept of other thing. So now what we say is that the 1G network which was rolled out during 80s laid foundation of mobile. When I say foundation of mobile, what I'm trying to say that the concept of licensed spectrum. So all the TSPs or telecom service provider, if they have to launch a mobile service today, they need licensed spectrum. They have to either buy or it is given part of the license. So during 80s itself, concept came of the license spectrum for telecommunications. So in USA, FCC provided that particular spectrum. Second, in any cellular mobile communication, there is a concept of frequency reuse. So when if you use say one frequency in this particular cell, the adjoining cell will use some different frequency. So frequency reuse concept came during the 1G network itself. So that's why we call it 1G itself as a foundation of mobile, because the concept which were started in 1G are still being used. As I said, it was analog voice, and because it was analog, the voice quality was poor, and also the phone size were very large. You can see this, that phone size very large, And since phone size is very large, electronics is big, the battery life would be very, very small, poor battery life, maybe 3 hours or 4 hours, and charging will take 10 hours overnight. You have to charge the phone and all. And the capacity of the network was very, very limited because of the analog technology. And of course, reliability was poor and security aspect was also not much there. So 1G was of course a foundation of mobile, but it had got certain limitations. So it was evolving from 1G to 2G. So when evolution take place 2G, so all of us know this particular Nokia phone 3310 which came during the 2G period. This is a iconic 2G phone, we can call it. So so if you look at the 2G network, we call it, it was giving a digital voice. So it shifted from a analog technology to a digital technology. And in analog technology, 1G, they used 30 kilohertz spectrum. In 2G, they use 200 kilohertz channel, and in this 200 kilohertz channels, they will use TDM, time division multiplexing, and 8 users can simultaneously use this 200 kilohertz. And being a digital technology, there was a scope also for applying various compression technique and other techniques. For example, our voice normally is a 64 kbps, but onto the radio side of the 2G, they will kind of compress and make it 8 kbps without losing the quality. So there was a lot of opportunity while technology moved from analog to digital. So it was a digital voice to billions of the people, and the 2G system is a system which is still being used today across the world. And in India also, there are a lot of 2G customers, and Airtel, BSNL, Voda have 2G network, still 2G network, except Jio, all other operators are having 2G network. So because of this digital technology, the capacity of the overall system got increased. And one of the important aspect of mobile phone, the name itself is mobile phone. So mobility, the real mobility came during the 2G era. You can take your phone and go to any part of the country or even go abroad and your phone will still be working. So that was one of the important aspect. And why it happened? All because the network which were deployed was based on standard. We call it GSM. So GSM, global system for mobile. So the entire network was on based on GSM spectrum. So all the operator across the country or across the world were using the same standard for the equipment, be it a device or be it a network, and that's why you are able to roam when you go outside your country or from one state to other state, because the technology used was same. And the other important service which came during the 2G was the SMS service. All of us are aware that SMS was a big service, and people started communicating in a small messages, 160 character if you remember. And then a lot of other usage started happening of the SMS. For example, you'll receive a notification that your electricity bill has come, or you'll receive a notification that uh, your your prepaid account is now need to be charged, and also a lot of usage started happening. And one of the biggest usage of SMS even today is the OTP. So one time password, the concept of one time password was kind of came using the SMS, wherein now you can do lot many transactions once you have verified with OTP on various website, various application and all. So that was a big service. And then during the 2G, it some data also started coming with GPRS and Edge. So limited data was also started, and when GPRS was started, we called this as a 2.5G. From 2G it became 2.5G, and at that point of time the data speed which we used to get about 10 kbps, 15 kbps, although theoretically it was up to 40 kbps and further evolved up to 171 kbps, but practically we were not getting much speed, 20 kbps or 15 kbps, sometimes 30 kbps max we will get. Then it further evolved to 2.75G, the technology we called it as an edge, and there our speed was up to 384 kbps. The peak speed which one can experience was 384 kbps, but practically it will be less depending upon how much resources are allocated for data and how much resources are being used for the voice service. So this was 2G, and the technology, as I said, used was GSM technology, and to support SMS they added certain node called SMSC, and for data SGSN, GGSN and packet data network. So now from 2G to 3G there was a quantum jump, in the sense that when 3G network came, so if you look at the devices, this is a iconic BlackBerry device which came during the 3G period, and then you can use the data for email, for image sharing, for video call and all. At the same time, even the Apple launched its iPhone with the 3G facility. So they rolled out this particular phone on WCDMA and also CDMA video, both support was there. So if you look at the 3G network, so how it was different from 2G was that uh, the core network contains two virtual component. One used to be called circuit switch for voice, another used to call packet switch domain for data. So and also certain changes onto the radio part and other network came along with. And uh, the difference from 1G and 2G and 3G was that in 3G the channel bandwidth used was 5 megahertz. So from 30 kilohertz in 1G to 200 kilohertz in 2G, and now 5 megahertz channel. Uh, and the technology here was moved to CDMA. And why it moved to CDMA? All because parallel to the 2G GSM network in America and certain other countries like Korea, they were using CDMA technology, CDMA 2001X for voice call and other services. They evolved to EVDO revision A, EVDO revision B, which was a 3G network. So when 3GPP took over the GSM, so GSM standard was made by ITSI. When 3GPP took over it from GSM for evolving to 3GPP specification, they in fact adopted the CDMA technology, and the technology used for 3G network by 3GPP was WCDMA. So it was a kind of a CDMA technology which is being used. So with that, we of course had digital voice and SMS as that was there in 2G, and the mobility of course was there. The important thing which came was the mobile web browsing. So now onto your device, you can start looking at various website in a very faster way compared to the 2G network. So that was one of the important aspect of 3G. As I said that WCDMA, when it got launched, so their speed was up to 384 kbps, and if you look at ITU definition, so this was enough to enough speed to call it as a 3G, but 3G was not kind of a static at that point, so it got evolved. So then it became the HSPA, so high speed packet access. So they started using higher order modulation, they started using MIMO antenna and so on. So the peak speed of the network increased to 7.2 Mbps. So user will get few 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps and so on. And the evolution continued. So it moved to HSPA plus, where now you have, you can go up to the speed 71.6 Mbps, and this was possible using the higher order QAM modulation and also the carrier aggregation. For example, if you use multiple 5 megahertz channel and then you aggregate, so you'll get higher speed. So they were able to achieve up to 71.6 Mbps using the HSPA plus. And of course, the user experience rate would be slightly later, and not all TSP have evolved to those technologies. So maybe why I'm saying that, because 3GPP release 8 was for LT, and also 3G evolution to HSP, HSPA plus. So many operators moved to 4G at that point of time. Instead of using the other evolved technology of 3G, they moved to 4G. So not all operators in fact used all the evolution of the 3G. So the three important thing which came along with 3G was that we started sharing uh, images, we started making video call, and then GPS came in the devices. And If you recall, at that point of time, some of the phone like Nokia phone was having navigation feature wherein you can, if you are say in a Mumbai, you can use the navigation feature. At that point of time, Google navigation was not so popular. So the navigation based or GPS based service started coming during the 3G period. When we evolved to 3G to 4G, so again the 3GPP was making the specifications, and at the same time there was evolution of WiMAX where they are using the OFDMA technology, and also the Wi-Fi where OFDMA technology was used. So 3GPP in fact adopted OFDMA modulation technique for 4G. They called it LTE, long-term evolution, and we started getting smartphone like this during that period, and all of us are using 4G network today, and all of us are having mobile network has evolved to from the full screen to so many other features which has come. So if you look at the 4G network, it is a kind of a complete data network. In 3G, I spoke that you have packet switch domain, you have circuit switch domain. In 4G, it is only the data part. The packet switch domain is there, and circuit switch domain has been taken out from the network. So how then voice call will be taken care? So there are two-way operators are able to offer voice call when they have a 4G network. One is that if an operator is having still having 3G or 2G network, so the devices, the 4G devices will connect to the 4G network for data and will connect to the 3G or 2G for the voice. So that is kind of arrangement which operators were doing. The other is like initially Airtel, Vodafone were using that kind of architecture. But parallelly, the voice can be offered using the data itself. We call it voice over LTE, VoLTE. For that, you need to put in some extra network element like IMS to offer voice over LTE. So when Jio started, they started only 4G network. They didn't have 3G or 2G. So what they did, they deployed IMS from the day one for voice call, and their voice was voice over LTE. If you look at your mobile phone while doing the voice call, VoLTE would be written on top of your mobile phone. And now even Airtel and other Vodafone have are using VoLTE wherever they have such connectivity. Otherwise, they have option to even use 3G or 2G network for voice call. The other question is then why we are still having the 2G network? All because in our field, many of the customers, particularly rural customers, are having the 2G phone. If you replace the 2G network with 3G or 4G network completely, their mobile will become redundant, and they will not be able to get service. So unless everyone has bought a smartphone, you may not be able to switch off the 2G network. There is a lot of call about 2G Mukt Bharat and all by some operators, but unless you are able to take care of all the individuals who are having a very cheap 2G phone, you cannot just switch off the 2G network. So let's talk about various services. So it's a data only technology, and for voice we are using voice over LTE, and of course it is having mobility just like 2G and 3G and SMS. The important aspect is mobile broadband, because we are using a OFDMA technology. And here why we are able to use mobile broadband, all because in 3G we had 5 megahertz channel bandwidth. In 4G I can use 20 megahertz channel bandwidth. So option to me is that, option to operators rather, is that they can use 20 megahertz channel. So from a 30 kilohertz to 200 kilohertz to 5 megahertz and now 20 megahertz. So you have a larger bandwidth, you can offer more data, and network is designed for data, so you can offer more data. That's why you can use the mobile broadband. So now mobile are more than a computer, and you can use them for all kind of services. So high data rate, smartphone, and then lot of mobile applications has come. If you look at your mobile phone, there are a lot of applications. So you need not now browse and go to a website. Every service is available like a mobile app, be it a banking service, be it a e-commerce site, be it any service is now a mobile app. So through mobile app and through 4G network, it is kind of happening. And then the social media has become very, very popular today, and a lot of consumption of data is happening through the image sharing, through video calling, through a lot of OTT based applications, entertainment and all. So that's what is being used, all because the 4G network is now capable of serving those high video consumption services onto the social media. And even today, whatever video conference we are having, it is possible all because of all these evolutions to this kind of data network, and all of you are able to join. So now let's move to 5G. From 4G to 5G, of course, the modulation technique remained more or less same OFDMA, but there are a lot of other technology which has been adopted in 5G. It has evolved, and it's a completely new specification. So when we say 5G, what we say is that it is a fifth generation of cellular network, and it will bring many new capability for people like us, for businesses, for society. That means every object, every machine can be connected to the 5G network, in addition to the human using a mobile phone or any other device by human. So every device in your house, for example your fridge, your air conditioner, your lights, etc., will get a 5G chip, and it will be kind of connected to the network, and then you can make use of various things. Okay, so just like 2G, 3G or 4G network, 5G has also got these components. So you have a radio part called NG-RAN, new generation radio access network, and then you have a core network called 5G core network, and beyond that you have a data network. So in 3G or 4G we used to call it PDN, packet data network, because it was able to handle only the IP traffic. But in 5G it can even handle the structured data, so that's why we call it data network. Any kind of data network it can get connected to for offering various services. So this is a high level 5G system. So just look at the architecture of 5G. I'll just briefly explain, because the way architecture of 5G has been defined, that is enabling lot of innovation and lot of services, and the student from the engineering college will be able to understand better. So if you look at this particular diagram, we call it service based architecture. It is not point to point connection. In the earlier diagram which you saw, that's one element gets connected to other network element, a point to point, and a specific protocols run onto that. In 5G it is a service based architecture, and they talk to each other over API call kind of. The important aspect is that the user plane part, when I say user plane, what I mean is the traffic from a user equipment to the data network flows here itself, uplink and downlink both. And the upper part, which is a control plane, is just to facilitate this data call within the user plane. So they have in fact segregated user plane and control plane completely, which was not the case in 4G or 3G. So user plane and control plane is segregated completely. And if you have segregated the user plane completely, what you can do is that this particular user plane can be co-located near to the user. For example, if your core network is in Mumbai and you are putting a network in Patna or Jaipur or some other place or Bangalore, so you can put this user plane part near to the user, so that your latency is improved, so that you are able to offer local services there, because data network is also being deployed there. That's the opportunity which we get. And the other aspect is that all these network elements are talking to each other on API call. So it has become a just like a HTTPS call. You may be aware, those from computer science and who have learned API, application programming interface, how it works, they will understand that how standard it has been made. Otherwise, every element used to talk to each other on a separate protocol. So now it's just an API call. Even from the outside, there is a network exposure function outside network element can get connected to the 5G network through the NEF. For example, if you want to connect OSS, operation support system, or business support system, or any third party services, any other application function AF, you can use the NEF route and you can connect to the 5G domain. So that's the advantage which 5G has brought, that outside connection is also can be connected on API. The other important aspect which has come in 5G is that they have disaggregated hardware and software. When I say hardware and software disaggregation, what I mean is that up to 4G, if you buy a network element from say Ericsson or Nokia, they will give you a purpose built hardware along with the software. So you cannot just buy hardware from X party and software from Y party. But in 5G that has been enabled. I can now buy a COTS commercially off the shelf hardware, maybe from HP, maybe from Lenovo, or maybe from any other server provider. And this network element has become piece of software, virtual network function, that you can deploy onto that COTS commercially off the shelf hardware. And now there is an opportunity also that since these network functions are virtualized, you can deploy the network on a cloud infrastructure. So today, Amazon Web Services provide cloud infrastructure, Microsoft Azure provides, Google Cloud, and in India, a lot of other data center providers have come up. So telco can have their own data center or own private cloud, and some of the network element they can deploy onto say Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud for redundancy and for availability and for robustness. They can do that, and even some MVNO can actually deploy the entire network element onto the cloud itself. So now there is a lot of opportunity has come because of 5G service based architecture. So let us now talk about different 5G usage scenario. What are different uses of 5G which can be taken care of, and what are different key capability which 5G has, which is enabling these key usage scenario. So if you look at the broad usage scenario, so there are three broad usage scenario in 5G. The first one is called EMBB. It is enhanced mobile broadband. So the mobile broadband which we are using today in 5G, that is getting enhanced in terms of various parameters which I will talk about in terms of speed, in terms of latency, in terms of spectral efficiency, and so on. The second important broad usage scenario is URLLC, ultra reliable low latency communication. So when I say ultra reliable, the network would be very reliable. When I say low latency, it will be latency to the level of say 1 millisecond. So your data end-to-end data will be flowing to the network, 5G network, within 1 millisecond. So very good latency. And the third is massive mobile uh, massive machine type communication. MMTC is massive machine type communication. So as I said that 5G will support connecting every object, every machine. So there will be a very large number of machine in a geography, say in a factory, and all would get connected to 5G network. So massive machine type communication. So these are the three broad category of usage scenario, and there will be certain overlap services which will use the features of EMB and features of URLLC. For example, if I talk about augmented reality or the mixed reality, so it will require a high bandwidth, so enhanced mobile broadband. It will also require a low latency so that you are able to experience that particular environment without any delay. So there will be many services which will be using the feature combination feature of these three, either two of them, three of them, or all of them. So let's talk one by one these services. Let us talk about EMBB, enhanced mobile broadband, and what are different features or the key capability in 5G which will be supporting enhanced mobile broadband. So the first is that for any mobile technology, there is a concept of peak data rate. When I say peak data rate, what I mean is that if there is a base station installed and there is only a single user and entire resource is given to him, So how much data rate he will be able to achieve? So the peak data rate which is defined in 5G, so basically ITU, International Telecommunication Union, defines this requirement, and then based on these requirements, the Standard Development Organization SDOs like 3GPP, they develop a candidate technology and they offer it to ITU, and ITU declare that whether the technology submitted by SDO is fit as 5G or 4G or not, and once that is approved, that is called approved candidate technology. So these the requirement were given by uh, ITU, which 3GPP made a specification. So release 15 and 16 by 3GPP is compliant to these ITU requirement, and that has been accepted by ITU as the approved technology. From India also, 5GI was a technology based on 3GPP radio itself, but for low mobility and large coverage. LMLC they call it. So 5GI is also a technology, radio technology of 5G, which has been accepted by ITU as a candidate technology, and that was developed in India by TSDSI along with IIT and other institutions. So the peak data rate in 5G will support up to 20 Gbps in downlink and 10 Gbps in uplink. So peak data rate is not the data rate which an user will get, but that is the aggregate data rate which a person can get if entire resource is given to him. And the spectral efficiency, if you talk about that, for a per hertz frequency, how much data rate a technology is able to deliver is called peak spectral efficiency. So for 5G, it was 30 bit per second per hertz in downlink, and uplink it was 15. And the next parameter is the user experience data rate, which is an important parameter as far as users are concerned. So users are expect how much data rate minimum they should expect. So it is 100 megabit per second. When I say user experience data rate, so suppose there is a BTS or base station of 5G. So if you go onto the edge, so normally if you are near to the BTS, you get very high rate. If you go beyond the BTS, your rate reduces, and then this particular user experience data rate is tested onto the edge, that even a person who is on edge of a coverage should at least get this much 100 megabit per second, and he'll get much better than this if he is near to the base station. So that is called user experience data rate. In downlink and uplink it is 50. And the next is the mobility. When we talk about enhanced mobile broadband, we should also talk about mobility. So in 5G, the mobility support is up to 500 km per hour. So basically it is for the high speed trains which is now coming in the market and various cities. So it will support 500 km per hour. So you can make a call, you can make a data call. Of course, the data rate compared to a static or low mobility would be less, but you can use your mobile while you're traveling up to the speed of 500 km per hour. So these are the various key capabilities of 5G which will enable enhanced mobile broadband. So let's move to the next service or next scenario, which is ultra reliable low latency communication. So what are different key capability which URLLC will be using? So one is the user plane latency. When I say user plane latency, if I am making a data call, how much time it takes for me to serve. For example, if I am trying to stream the data, how fast the data is, what is the latency, or if you are making a live telecast, how how is the latency, how much time it takes to receive the signal. So the latency in 5G is up to 1 millisecond. So basically for URLLC services, it will support a latency of 1 millisecond. And there is some concept of control plane latency, which is up to 20 millisecond, and then reliability has to be very high. So when you measure reliability, we normally say 99.999, so 69 or 79. So it will support a very high reliable network. And mobility interruption in 5G has to be 0 millisecond. When you move from one base station to other base station, there will not be interruption of your services. That is what is envisaged by ITU. Now the third kind of scenario is massive machine type communication. I said that this is for connecting various objects, various machines, onto the 5G network. So to support this, the important requirement is the connection density. When I say connection density, what I mean is that, say, in 1 square kilometer of area, how much devices can be connected, how many devices can be connected. So it is 1 million, that is 10 lakh devices per square kilometer is supported by 5G. So you can have very large number of devices in one. So it's a factory scenario. In a factory, if all the machineries, all the objects are to be connected, so it will support 10 lakh devices per square kilometer. It will take care of all these aspects. Even in the agriculture field, where you will putting lot of sensors onto the agri field for monitoring the crop, irrigation, etc. So there also it will be supporting. And the second important aspect is the energy efficiency. Why energy efficiency is important? All because these IoT devices or the sensors will be installed at a very remote location in a agri field, or the factories inside, deep inside the factories, and they will have some battery. So battery life has to be very high, 10 years, 15 years, and that is only possible when energy efficiency is very high. So basically, when we say energy efficiency, basically to compare how much energy efficient 5G is, it is 100 times more energy efficient than 4G. So that itself will tell you that how much energy efficient. And that's why 5G is also called a green technology, because of the energy efficiency which it has. Now let us compare these key capability with the 4G. So 4G was also kind of, the requirement was given by ITU, and 3GPP made the final specification that was accepted. In addition, even the WiMAX was a 4G technology which didn't expanded across the globe, but it was accepted as a 4G technology by ITU. But this LTE, or the LTE advanced, was the approved technology of the 4G. So let us compare 4G and 5G. What diagram here you see is an iconic diagram given by the ITU itself in its document in 2015. So the dark green color shown here is the 5G capability, which is called IMT 2020 by ITU, and 4G was called IMT Advanced. So this dark light color is for 4G. So there are 8 parameters I'll quickly cover. So let us start with the peak data rate. So peak data rate in 4G it was 1 Gbps, and 5G now it is 20 Gbps. And then the user experience data rate, it was 10 MB megabit per second in 4G. It is now 100 megabit, we just came to know. And then the spectral efficiency has increased 3 times, that is 30 bit per second per head in 5G. It was 10 in 4G. Mobility has come to 500 kilometer per hour. It was 350 in 4G. Latency, it is 1 millisecond. It was 10 millisecond in 4G. Connection density, it was 1 lakh. Now it is 10 lakh. The network energy efficiency has improved 10 times. And area traffic capacity, that means in a square meter area how much data can be pumped. So it is 10 megabit per second per meter square, and it was 0.1, so 100 times increase. So this is comparison with 4G, that if you look at capability of 4G, there is huge enhancement which is coming in 5G. So now let's look at various usage scenario using this 3 EMBB, URLLC and MMTC. What applications or the services which can come with combination of that. This is also an iconic triangular diagram taken again from the ITU document released in 2015. So if you look at this, how they have envisaged into 2015 and now it is becoming reality, was that the EMBB service, with EMBB service, you will be able to download gigabytes in a second. That means the movies you will be able to download in few seconds. Today it takes a very large time, but it will be very less time in 5G. And using, for example, if you use capability of EMBB and also capability of URLLC, you can roll out augmented reality. Just see here that in augmented reality you need a high data rate, you also need low latency. Similarly for industry automation, so industry automation, we will mainly require ultra reliable and low latency, but it may also require EMBB, all because there will be certain video being captured which will be analyzed at the back end, or AI ML kind of environment will be there. So it will be using combination of these EMBB, URLLC and MMTC for different services. If you talk about a smart city, so here massive capacity is the requirement and the data rate requirement would be less. So this is a triangle in which all services they had shown, and they had said that the three combination of the three broad usage scenario will come handy for these services. So let us look at a few more services. So if I call it enhanced mobile broadband, then I'm talking about 3D or ultra high definition video telepresence, or a demanding condition like stadium where everyone want to take video images, share, or do a live cast on Facebook or any other media. Or it could be a streaming service. For example, today when a TV operator or news operator want to cover a event, so they go with a vehicle with a large satellite antenna. With 5G network, they'll be able to do that. With 5G network itself, they will not require that big antenna and all, and they'll be able to use it. So virtual reality is other application of EMBB. So when we say EMBB and these services, we are talking about extreme throughput, which 5G has to provide, ultra low latency up to 1 millisecond, uniform experience where you are at one place or other place, your experience should be good, and the capacity is more, and the cost is less, cost per bit is less. Now I talked about augmented reality VR applications. So for example, once 5G is rolled out and AR VR services are getting rolled out, so now the students will be able to kind of do various experiments sitting in their school, and these devices could be located elsewhere or from the home. Not only that, there will be a lot of other applications related to experience which will come handy for education, for teleconsulting, and so on. And then massive machine type communication, some examples are smart cities. I talked about that every object or the device in the smart city will be connected on 5G network. Our wearable devices or the fitness devices will be connected to the 5G. Smart homes, every home appliance will be connected, and the remote sensors and actuators in the agri field. So these are kind of applications of massive mobile type communications which 5G supports. So basically, how 5G supports it, that it kind of provides uh, a massive number of devices can get connected to the network. That is number one. Second is that it is energy efficient, so that the battery life of these sensors can be very life, 10 years, 15 years it will give. And the deep coverage, when sensors are there in the agriculture field, uh, there has to be mobile coverage, and these sensors could also be in the basement. So the deep coverage was one of the requirement of 5G, which is supported by 5G, because it supports the band below 1 gigahertz, 400 megahertz or 700 megahertz, where you can have a deep coverage, narrow band deep coverage would be possible for this MMTC kind of services. And then the URLLC, ultra reliable low latency communication. So examples are autonomous vehicles. So these vehicles will be talking to all other vehicles and other poles, red light, etc., and they will be driven automatically, in the sense that driverless car, and the collision will be much lesser even compared to the human driving it. And the robotics, robotics, when I say robotics, maybe a robotic surgery by a doctor, maybe robotics for industrial automation and aviation, drone kind of services, 5G drones. So these are applications which will be using the URLLC usage scenario and the capability of 5G. So basically, when we say URLLC, we are talking about high reliability, extreme low loss, low latency, and high availability. And the self-drive, this is just a picture of self-driving car. So now let us talk about how 5G can be used for public safety. So as I said that the 5G can be deployed faster in emergency situation where some accident or some natural disaster happens. And then connected sensors, if you're able to put sensors everywhere, so natural disaster, I mean the warning can come very very early, and the agencies can take better action. The 5G drones, which I talked about, can support emergency situation response in a better way. So today also they do it, but it will become more better. And then remote consulting by a doctor, diagnosing by a doctor elsewhere would become reality in an emergency situation. And because of the V2X, a vehicle talking to all other vehicles and other devices, road collision can be avoided. So road safety is coming, and there can be so many other applications. Now the much talked industry 4.0, so 5G will also support industry 4.0 and all. So basically you can deploy a private 5G network, or you can use a public 5G network. So production line can automatically react to supply and demand. Once everything is connected, sensors are deployed, so all those supply and demand can be automated for industry. And then there is a concept of digital replica. So your machines, whatever machines are running in a particular factory, a digital replica you can see in your office, at your home, and you will come to know if there is some problem is happening in the machine. So you'll come to know, and you will be able to take advanced action. So the concept of digital replica. And then the logistic networks can actually react automatically based on where is the requirement of the particular raw material, and those can be diverted at those locations. If a vehicle is carrying certain spares, and then it receives a signal that the in a particular factory requirement is more compared to the other factory which can wait for 3 days, so automatically it can be routed to a factory which is requiring those raw material, and so on. So there could be n number of applications which we can use for industry using the 5G network. So now 5G for agriculture. So this is also very very important feature. So today, even nowadays, if you see a lot of agricultural drone has come in every country. In India also have seen people using it for spraying pesticide and all. So those are just a use in a way without using the capability of 5G. Once 5G drones are used, so it will not only take pictures of those agri field, it will also tell you that which particular area will require pesticide, which particular will require fertilizer, and which area certain fruits has ripened, which is to be taken out, and also all those things will come. So basically, so you can do livestock tracking using 5G, you can do irrigation management, machinery tracking, vehicle monitoring, access control, equipment monitoring, soil and crop monitoring, agricultural drone, etc. So all these use cases for agriculture will come once 5G is rolled out across the world, including India. And of course, 5G for experience, I talked about augmented reality. So when I say 5G for experience, it could be for entertainment, it could be for education, it could be for tourism, and so on. So based on today also we have AR VR services, but it will become more realistic when 5G is there, because you can, I mean, suppose sitting at home, you can visit say Taj Mahal wearing this particular glass or such devices in a real time. Your friend could be in Agra at Taj Mahal, you could be at your home, and you both are like traveling together the Taj. That could be one of the scenarios. So lot of entertainment, tourism, education related services will come related to 5G. Okay, so I'll just briefly in one slide tell you that what are various technologies which 5G is using to make all these usage scenario possible. So one is that the 5G supports frequency band, very very large range of frequency band, which is low band. When I say low band, it is less than 1 gigahertz, 700 megahertz, 400 megahertz, for those deep coverage which I talked about, connecting machines, massive type of machines. Then the mid band, which will be used in cities, the frequency in the range of say 3.5 gigahertz and so on. And the millimeter wave, when I say millimeter wave, the frequency is in the range of 39 gigahertz, 40 gigahertz, and so on. So the 5G can operate on low band, mid band, and the high band depending upon the use. Where which frequency will be used can be decided. And then we talked about channel bandwidth. In 2G it was 30 kilohertz, I mean 200 kilohertz, 3G 5 megahertz, 4G 20 megahertz. Here it is up to 400 megahertz. So larger the bandwidth, more speed you can offer. And then you can aggregate certain channel bandwidth. So 16 channels can be aggregated. Theoretically, you can go up to 7.2 gigahertz channel bandwidth in case you have that much spectrum. And then of course there is a concept of use up bandwidth part, and this is important for IoT kind of devices where these devices are having batteries, and they have to be installed at a remote location, and battery life has to be high, so they use the bandwidth part. They are not supposed to support all the frequency bands. So on a narrow band they can support, they can save energy, and so there's a concept of bandwidth part for energy saving and optimal utilization of the network. There is a concept of small cell for ultra capacity. So whenever we use millimeter wave, which is high in frequency, and we know that higher the frequency, lower the coverage, right? Because higher frequency attenuates faster. So we'll create a small cell, but the capacity of those small cell will be very, very high. Ultra high capacity. You can give speed in gigahertz, right? 1 Gbps, 2 Gbps, 3 Gbps, depending upon how much bandwidth you are using. So small cell for ultra capacity. And there is a concept of integrated access and backhaul which came in release 16. That means whenever you have a BTS, you require a backhaul fiber. But in 5G, you can also use the same network for backhauling. That is called IAB. And then you have a concept of massive MIMO and beam forming, in the sense that there will be thousands of antenna in one antenna panel. The antenna which we see on top of a tower uh, now can accommodate thousands of such antenna, and using those antenna, different antenna elements, a beam can be formed to a particular user who want to use the data. So it will not be uniform coverage, it will be the beam forming towards a user who want to actually use the data. And then you will have non-standalone operation wherein the 4G network itself can accommodate 5G base station, and then we have a standalone operation wherein you have 5G core and 5G base station. So initial deployment will be NSA, and then finally the SA mode of operation will come. So let us have a look at the deployment worldwide and in India. So India, we have actually started the trial. So DOT, Department of Telecom, Government of India. So they have issued a spectrum in low band, that is 700 megahertz, then mid band 3.5 gigahertz, and also 24 to 28 gigahertz band. So all the three, low band, mid band, and high band, the DOT has given a trial spectrum to all the telecom service providers, so that different usage scenario or use cases they can test. And then if you look at the EMBB services, Jio had achieved 1 Gbps speed on the spectrum which is given to them, and the Airtel had also achieved a speed of 1.2 Gbps. So this trial is going on, and it will continue for some time, and maybe next year onwards the deployment can start. So Jio may start early, or Airtel is also ready, they can also start the 5G services soon. And government is also trying to auction specific 5G spectrum in coming days, maybe next year or end of this year. So that will make happen. If you look at worldwide deployment, so worldwide there is a large number of deployments. So there are more than 82,000 small places where 5G has been deployed, and there are 170 plus operators who have deployed this. So this is a worldwide scenario of deployment of 5G. As on yesterday, as on today morning, I took the data, and then the device ecosystem has actually matured. So even in India, we don't have 5G network, but a lot of devices, 5G enabled devices have come into the market. So being a 5G device, it will of course work in the 4G network, but whenever 5G is rolled out, those devices will use the 5G services also. So with this, I have completed my session. In case you want to go deep into all these aspects, so I have created so many sessions related to 5G. You can either scan this QR code or there is a link given. I'll be sharing the PPT. You can use that to learn more about 5G. So with this, thank you very much, and I just close my uh, PPT. And in case there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very enlightening presentation. In fact, day in and day out, we are hearing about the potentials of 5G. So you have shed much light on this, and now we are able to understand it in a much better way. I'm sure that the engineering students in the audience would have immensely benefited out of it. So now it is a time for questions. See, before I I move on to that, there was a comment by Mr. Dayanand Kamat before the presentation started. He wanted to know whether 5G is prepared at all to be made available to everyone. See, I'm sure that after this presentation, he would not like to press with that doubt or query. So let us move on to other couple of questions. I will request Mr. Lata to post them on the stage so that the speaker can respond to that. All the questions together.
Okay. So this question is, many hardware manufacturers are providing with very limited 5G bands on their devices. Is TRA going to put any guidelines for implementation of all available 5G bands in upcoming devices for the best use and coverage of available 5G bands? So basically, so it's all about developing the ecosystem. So suppose I manufacture a device which is supporting the entire low band, entire mid band, entire high band. It will become very costly, right? So depending upon, suppose in a country, which band is getting allocated by the government for 5G, or which band operators are actually using 5G, the ecosystem will develop around that. In India, since we don't have 5G network today, and the auctions for 5G has not yet happened, so we are not very sure which all band will mature for which specific bands will mature for 5G. So of course, once these are rolled out, the ecosystem will automatically develop around that. And it is true today, it is true that whatever phones are coming to the market related to 5G, they may not be supporting all 5G services. For example, even 2019 we had a phone, right? Mobile phone. So at that point of time, the 5G had released 15, 3GPP release 15 was there in the market. Then release 16 has also come, which has got certain many features like carrier aggregation is one. So some phone may support carrier aggregation, some phone may support it. So the phone which is coming in 2020 will support carrier aggregation and large number of bands. So it is an evolution of the devices, evolution of the ecosystem, which will take place by over a period of time. So it is not possible that from day one every device will support all the services. I hope I answered your question. Can you move to next question if you have? Okay, in 5G it is told that radiation emitted is injurious to human health. What all precautions are proposed to be implemented in 5G? It's a very good question, and perhaps Brajender ji also answered in his presentation that if you talk about any mobile technology, basically we are talking about the issues which is coming due to EMF, electromagnetic field, being generated by propagation of those mobile signals. And in the EMF also there are two category, ionizing and non-ionizing, right? So Brajendra ji clearly told that only the ionizing, the frequency band who are having ionizing impact will have some health hazard. And since the frequencies which is used for 2G, 3G, 4G and even on 5G are much below those ionizing things, that is number one. Secondly, in India, so Department of Telecom LSS, uh, so every circle has got LSA office, and the operators are mandated to actually check the radiation of each BTS site and 10% of the BTSs are audited by DOT office LSA unit. And all these parameters are actually recorded on a web portal, EMF web portal, uh, which will kind of, you can go to that particular uh, portal and see the radiation of each. Uh, just give a moment. Just give me a moment. I'll be just
It is
back.
Tarang, sir, Tarang portal.
Tarang Sanchar.
Tarang Sanchar.
Yeah, it is Tarang Sanchar portal. So on that website you can see, and as Brijenerji also explained, that if you look at the international standard of radiation, that which up to which much level of the radiation is allowed. So India has been very cautious. When we released those parameters, we made it 1/10. So that means our rules for EMF is 10 times stringent compared to the international rules. So, so that is one of the major, we can say, that is taken in India, which takes care of. So there are a lot of measures which in terms of EMF measurement, in terms of EMF parameters regulation, in terms of, and naturally also the frequency which has been used are lower frequency or non-ionizing frequency, so it will not have any health impact as far as today's research available is concerned. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Hari. Any more question? So I can also see certain question in the, okay. So Darshan has got 2 questions. Can you take the other 2 questions? Yeah. Okay, the one question which is coming from Priyanka is, will fiber deployment patterns changes when 5G is deployed? Answer is yes. So as you see that 5G, so up to say 4G or 3G, your base station used to be a single box, right? And from where you have a backhaul fiber connected or a microwave connected. In 5G, that is getting disaggregated into 2 product or 3 product. They call it RU, the radio unit, the DU, the distributed unit, and the CU, the central unit. So generally, the central unit will be in a cloud, a DU can be in a regional cloud, and RU would be on the top of the tower. And for every leg, there is a bandwidth requirement. So the first leg is called front haul, then we call it mid haul, and then we call it back haul. So you require a very high capacity data link between these two. So definitely the fiber laying is required to more and more site. Now that is becoming more important when you have a small cell. If you are using a millimeter wave, which will not cover more than 10 meter, 20 meter, 50 meter or 100 meter. So every say 30 meter or 40 meter on every pole, or every electric pole, or every place, you will have a small cell. Even inside your house will be a 5G base station, just like your Wi-Fi routers. So the backhaul requirement is very important. As I explained in one of my session, capability of 5G, that 5G also supports integrated access and backhaul. When I say IAB, what I mean here is that the same tower will be giving services to the user equipment and will also work as a backhaul for the next BTS, next small cell. So you can have multiple hop of BTSs. That means G node B can be spread. Those DU part, the distributed unit along with the radio, will be at multiple hop, utilizing the capacity of the same G node B. So there, so the backhaul requirement will become automatic in the IAB or in the access itself. It will work as a backhaul. So this came in release 16 of 3GPP, which companies like Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung have built the product, right? So if you look at their website, so they have built a product around IAB. So there will be some ease of putting fiber at each location when we are using the millimeter wave. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, so next question is, if a lot of important sector of the economic are going to be on 5G, how is cyber security and data security going to be safeguarded in the implementation? Is there some standards and mandatory measures that the ecosystem need to adhere to? Very good question. So now, as we saw that 5G is becoming just like any other IT system, because now you have your network functions are virtual network function, you can deploy on any cloud. So all the safety measure, the security measure which a IT system is supposed to have, now the telecom operators are to build that kind of IT network, all I mean along with their 5G or deployments. That is number one. Secondly, while 5G specifications were made, there were a lot of enhancement related to the security aspect. So if you look at 3GPP specifications, so they have, I mean, in their specification at many places, they have come out with many aspects related to the security which has become part of the specification itself. Every OEM need to comply. For example, I'll just tell you one scenario wherein up to the 4G network, when a mobile phone latches to the network for the first time or does a mobility update, what happens is that at that point of time, it sends its identity, that is IMSI, in a plain text, and using that somebody can catch that, we call it IMSI catcher, and hear your voice, record your voice without you knowing or the operator knowing. So there are a lot of these vulnerability has been actually fixed in 5G, wherein even for the first time the encrypted version of IMSI is being transmitted onto the radio network, which is called SUKI. And there are a lot many. And if you look at GSM associations, they have also come out with a security framework. So they have come out with a security framework. They are now coming out with the certification of the equipment for the security purposes. So a lot of, I mean, security aspect are being evolved, which 5G system will be using. So I hope 5G will be secure in that sense. I hope I answered your question. Okay, do 5G high-speed wave band available in Bangalore urban areas? So very pertinent question. So as I explained you that DOT has allocated a spectrum in millimeter wave also for the trial, but DOT is expected to do auction in even millimeter wave around 28 gigahertz band. So yes, across the India, the millimeter band would be auctioned maybe next year or so, and then such a small cell can be deployed with operator, those who, I mean, buy those spectrum and deploy the services. Yeah, so what are the challenges in implementation of millimeter wave 5G in India? Okay, so good question, Mohit. So the first challenge is the spectrum itself. So as I said that 5G peak speed can go up to 20 gigabit per second. And I also told you that the spectral efficiency is 30 bit per second per hertz. So you can calculate that how much spectrum you will require to achieve that 20 Gbps, right? And when I talk about availability of spectrum, so the mid band and low band, those are already being used by 2G, 3G, 4G and 5G. So the only available option for us today is the millimeter wave. And in millimeter wave, there is a abundance of chunk of frequency which can be allocated. So operators need to, actually government need to auction frequencies in millimeter wave, and also of course mid band and low band is required for coverage purpose. Otherwise small cell with millimeter wave may not be able to cover the entire area. A millimeter wave would be mainly for hotspot kind of requirement. I'll tell you one use case of millimeter wave in America. So there, one of the operator has deployed. What they have done is that using the dynamic spectrum concept, they have shared the 4G spectrum along with 5G, and they have launched, Verizon in particular, have launched these 5G services across the country using the same spectrum which 4G is using. So they have covered the entire country with 5G. So if you have a 5G phone, your 5G will be written on your device that you are getting a 5G signals. So that they have used. So they are using low band, they are using mid band, for that purpose. And for millimeter wave in 39 gigahertz frequency band they have launched this small cell concept. So where they have installed these BTSs, so they have chosen all the stadium in the US and they have installed a millimeter wave and a small cell, so that whenever there is a match or something, they are able to cater to that particular audience there. They can use the 5G phone high speed and all. And they have also covered 60 70s major cities with this millimeter wave and created hotspot around the high usage area. So this is how the millimeter wave would also be implemented in our country, and the challenge would be that it will cover only a small area, so you require large number of such devices and if base stations. And in case you are having large number of base stations, you require a backhaul for that. That's a challenge. IAB can be used. So all these are the challenges. And of course, the availability of devices is one factor in that. Mohit, I hope I answered your question. Okay, what is the expert take on the radiation fears which is looming regarding 5G in minds of the customers? I answered this question in earlier questions, so we can perhaps skip to the next question. Sridhar, I hope you heard my answer earlier. Can we move to the next question? Okay, is 5G really necessary in residential area? I'll give you one example then. So in this world, nothing is necessary and nothing is and everything is necessary in that sense. So today, all of us, what I am using for my presentation today in this air meet is that I'm using a FTTS, a fiber connection I am using so that my presentation is good and the voice quality and video quality is good. But 5G cannot reach to every place. But with 5G, you can get 5G fixed phone, FWP, you can get fiber-like speed wirelessly. So that means I can take broadband to the remotest part of the country if I'm using the 5G. So in that sense, 5G becomes a necessity in the residential area also, so that a fiber-like services can be uh, provided to each household. So in America, there is a use case by some of the operators that they have started providing broadband services, fixed wireless broadband services using 5G coverage to the houses. And then in case you have to cover with fixed wireless phone, you'll be able to form a beam. So you'll have external antenna, beam can be formed, and high speed without any interference can be taken to those sites. So that's the necessity, we can say. More questions? If you can put more questions, I think. Sir, your voice is not very clear to us.
Interest generated in the audience.
Okay, Jamichuddin, I'll just interrupt. There's one question I think that somebody has put. Because it is not regarding 5G, I think it's regarding the apps. The question session. Hello?
Yes, sir.
The host can put that question. Just one question for, I think, the apps which you had put, no? My call and my. Just one minute, we can just answer that question.
Sir, which question, sir?
The question by Mr. Darshan about open source my call and my data applications.
Is it the one, sir?
Just
I
after
think
that.
just now we have posted.
Just after that. Just before that. The same thing.
So I think this question I can answer. So
One more question, just now we got it, sir.
so somebody has asked about ITU-T standard. So
Yeah,
basically,
Shobji, you can answer the question.
yeah.
Yes, sir, this is the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this question is from Darshan
Okay.
about planning to open source my call and my data application similar to how I think Coven wants to say here. But what I understand you want to ask is not about open source, but open APIs. Because normally most applications are through open source software only. But what the question I think he is in his mind about the open APIs for these apps. So as of now, these apps don't have open APIs to connect to other apps. We'll take your feedback and we'll just see how it can be done. Or because basically these apps are used for crowdsourcing the information. So if those things can be done, we'll think over it. That was from our side about these apps.
So Brajendra ji, earlier there was a question posted related to ITU-T standards. So basically, ITU, one of
Ashok
the,
your voice you're not able to hear.
is it coming? No.
Sir, there is a problem with your audio. Ashok sir.
Okay. Hello. Hello. I'll reconnect.
No.
Ashok sir, we are not able to hear you, sir.
I'll reload.
Has seen the kind of interest it generated among the participants. So now we have come to the end of this particular program. I would express my sincere thanks to all the participants, the speakers, Sri Ashok Kumar ji, Professor Ashuta from Dayananda Institute of Engineering College, the representative of the telecom service providers. As I told you in the beginning, we have got representatives from the telecom service providers who are attending the program and noting down the